everybody, and welcome to Unlocking Freedom in Nature and Art.
We are so happy to be here another week, another great conversation with another amazing guest. And her name is Elaine Mingus. And we're happy to have her. Hi, Elaine.
Hi, how are y'all today?
Hey, we're great. And Elaine is from Texas, and I am from Texas as well. I'm in the Dallas area, Texas, USA. And then I know there's a lot of people from everywhere around the world in this show or in our group. And I like to say US. But Elaine is in Austin, Texas, which is the capital of Texas. And we're happy to have you.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I love the fact that Elaine has it's what I call risk taker. She is an inspiring human being. She is a contestant, or she participated in a pageant, beauty pageant, and she is going to talk to us about that. She is the winner right now. She's Mrs. Austin. And also there's a whole lot of things here that we are going to talk about. She's a mom of 7 children. And she's also a creator, because she turns furniture into something new, into new pieces. So I love that about her. And something went wrong and she's gone for a little bit, but we're excited to be here with her. I'm sure she's going to come back. So Tammy, what do you think about that? Creating something new out of something that's old.
That's awesome. I'm excited that she is here, but I do want to say thank you for everybody that is watching today. We appreciate your support, and make sure you do ask questions, because we're going to be, even if you come back on later and watch this at a later time, be sure to watch questions. And we appreciate all of you that do share your photos online and just contribute, right, Lori?
Definitely. Elaine, you're back. We're excited.
And I'm trying to figure out, am I sideways for y'all?
You are.
I'm like, hold on, let me see if I can get it. Okay,
there you go. There you go.
I don't know what happened. Okay, hopefully I'm not too crooked.
So tell us about your
fine.
journey, Elaine. I told the audience you do a lot of things. So where do you want to start, for as a mom, and then as a beauty pageant contestant and winner, etc.?
Sure. So I live in Austin, Texas. I am a mom of 7. And for the last 15 years, we were homeschooling. We just put our last 5 in charter school, which has freed up my schedule to do a lot more amazing things with my platform. And I am the current United States of America Mrs. Austin 2024, and I'll be competing in less than 20 days for the title of United States of America Mrs. Texas, hopefully to go on to the national pageant. And I am a vintage furniture reseller here in Austin. And my motto is keeping history out of the landfill. And I have built a fairly successful business doing that for the past 6 years. Been married 21 years. And so my story is full of tons of ups and downs, because as you know, being a mom, being a woman, being an entrepreneur, it is fraught with lots of different things that we deal with, and a lot of different things that are specific to women. And so just here to share my story and kind of talk a little bit about what I've gone through.
Wow, you wear a lot of hats, Elaine. I'm impressed. But you know what? I find that most moms and wives do.
Yeah.
Wear a lot of different hats, and a lot of times we don't even realize how many hats we wear. So that's amazing. So I'm excited to hear more about your stories. So did you grow up in Texas?
So yeah, I did grow up in Texas. I grew up in Houston, Texas, and then I went to a small town outside in Sealy, Texas, where part of my story, kind of my origin story, really started, and then came here to Austin in '99 for college and got a journalism degree, and went on to do marketing and advertising and writing, and have published books, and have been on stages and podcasts telling my story. But my story really starts when I was in a small town, and I grew up in a fairly well-to-do family, and we went to a small little Baptist church. And what I didn't know then, what I do know now, is that the youth pastor, one of the youth pastors, was um, grooming me to do things that I shouldn't have been required to do at a young age. And so that's really where my life kind of went from like a normal, middle class, upper middle class white family life to just spiraling out of control. And so when it was found out that I had been being abused, my mother, was like, please, let's go to the police. We went to the church where it happened. The church said, we know what happened. He's come and told us his side of the story, and we believe that she seduced him. And he's a grown man. I'm 13. And I was at that moment just absolutely horrified because here I am thinking that, this person really cared about me. I'm 13, coming of age, thinking that like, oh, I'm so old and mature, and this guy wants me, and not realizing that he was doing it to multiple people at that same time, and then being blamed for my behavior when I didn't even start that. When my mom asked me to go to the police, I said, Mama, I can't do that. Like, I'm just so ashamed. I'm so embarrassed. And that shame and embarrassment led to a series of just awful decisions. When you kind of, one of my platform is overcoming through storytelling. And the reason why we are called to tell our story and share our story is because when you bottle it up, it creates a kind of disease inside of you and eats away from the inside. And so because I didn't share my story, because I didn't come forward, I wasn't allowed that healing. And I decided to start engaging in a very drastic form of eating disorder and got very, very thin. Got to the point where I have stopped my menstruation, all these things, and when that coping mechanism, like I like to call it, didn't work anymore, I turned to drugs and I turned to alcohol, and it got so bad that I ended up having almost a daily heroin addiction. And it was at that point, without me trying, I didn't, I wasn't like seeking God or doing anything like that. I walked into a church and was met with the greatest story ever told, where someone came down and died for us so that we could rewrite not on only our earthly story, but our eternal story. And every single thing that I've done since then comes out of that moment of redemption, where I finally was realizing I was free to be who I was really created to be, and not this broken version of who I had turned into because somebody else's, actions had, pushed me down and kept me bound. And so it wasn't right away that I was able to tell my story and kind of open up that festering wound. I had to go through a lot of healing, eating disorder therapy, fighting my own, the addictions that came along with that. Addiction, I gave up the harder stuff right away, but it was harder to give up some of the other things over time. But it wasn't until I found out that the abuser had finally been arrested for his abuse, and he got a slap on the wrist because it was considered his first offense. And so from there, I decided, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to contact the police. At that point, I'm not sure if it's like this anymore, but at that point, there was a 10-year statute of limitations, and I was coming up on that 10-year mark. And so I went to the police. I said, this is what's happened. Here's my journal. Here are the names of the people that knew it was going on and knew it was happening to them. And they tried, I guess, a little bit. It's a small town. I was told that that family has a lot of clout and that it was hard for them to continue the investigation because the people that could have corroborated that what had happened to me and even added to it were too scared to share their story because of the clout of the family and because of the community. And so from there, I went on and decided to take all that I have learned from being a journalist major, doing multimedia, doing marketing, and start a blog and share my story. And so I was able to, over the course of 15 years, share my story with over 1 million people through blogs, books, and podcasts. But it wasn't really kind of enough for me. I really wanted to get out and resonate with that community because it's imperative we continue to fight this fight, because we know statistically 1 in 4 women are sexually abused over the course of their lifetime, and 1 in 9 boys. That is only what's reported. And so I wanted to get my story out. But there was kind of this moment where I was just like, this is not working. And I know that a lot of people get to that place where you're a business owner, or you're, a mom trying to make it, put food on the table, whatever it is. There's that breaking moment, and you're just like, I'm done. I'm finished. I'm not even going to try anymore. And you just kind of give up. And so, I'm doing this. I've got kids, I'm homeschooling, and, we're trying to make it financially. And I just was like, I'm sick of this. I don't want to do this anymore. And so I decided to just, at that point of my life, that's when the vintage furniture came in. I started picking up stuff on the side of the road and selling it on Facebook Marketplace in order to get out of debt, because we had gone as a family on a vacation, and was able to pay off $10,000 of debt in 6 months. And so I turned that into a 6-figure vintage furniture business during that time. But during that time, I felt this pressure, like, you're supposed to be telling the story. And I was just like, I am just a vintage furniture reseller. Like, I'd put my head down and be like, I'm not telling my story. Like, that didn't work. Like, no one wanted to listen. I mean, people wanted to listen, but not like at the level that I felt like I wanted them to listen. And I kept pushing it away, kept pushing it away. And, was really brokenhearted about it. And in the Bible, there's a scene where I think it's Isaiah or Elijah. I think it's Isaiah. He tries to not tell the story inside of him, not talk about God. And he says that it became like a fire in his belly. And he says, I tried to keep it in, but I just couldn't. And so I continued to just ignore that. But then things just kept falling into place. I went to a speakers conference, which was really unlike me during that time, because I was just doing vintage furniture. I was just outside in the sweaty heat, just flipping stuff on Facebook, not worried about my writing career or my speaking career. And there was like, just, kind of that moment when it's just all the things line up and just starts coming into place. And you're like, I kept saying, I don't know what you're doing up there, God, but I'm not here for it. Like, just count me out. I've already tried this path before. And that's when I saw Miss America speak. And she said, then I heard her speak 1 week. And then next week, I've never literally come across pageantry in my entire life. And in 2 weeks, I saw Mrs. America speak and Mrs. Universe speak. And they essentially said the same thing. They said, as soon as you put on a crown and a sash, it doesn't matter what you were saying before, people start paying attention. And I just took it as a sign, like, okay. And I put out like a couple things like, okay, God, if you do this or you do this, and, get me into it. And he did. And ever since that moment, it's been just a whirlwind of blessing and understanding that, what I'm doing is what I'm called to do. And that's to bring light to the darkness and set the captives free by sharing my story of overcoming and saying, hey, you know what? Whatever you went through in life, whether it's been hard, whether it's been devastating, that doesn't determine your future. And I, of course, have a special heart for moms and women, because we do wear all the hats. And sometimes it can feel really overwhelming because, I'm telling you my story, but, what I'm not telling you is on the back end, trying to juggle a house, a husband, any issues, losing weight after a baby, all the things that come in with being a woman, a wife, and a mom. And so I know that, like, when you listen to a story like this, it's super inspiring, but it doesn't take into account all the years that we spend in the sidelines and the recesses, in the wings of the stage, when we want to be out there making a difference. And so that's where I'm at right now. I'm still selling vintage furniture, and I'm, running, this is my 5th pageant, and I'm super excited about it. And I've built up this beautiful community in pageantry and around vintage furniture that is very hyper local and has helped other women in the local community connect because of what I'm doing. And it's just been, what's fun about this part versus when I was doing it before I was doing it by myself. I was building up a kingdom, and it was all me all the time, being a one-woman show. And not to say that I'm not a woman show now, but I have this beautiful community of people around me that are willing to support me. Got my Botox yesterday, and that's, and she's my sponsor, so I don't have to pay for that. And so little things like that, where they come and they're like, I believe in what you're doing. Let me use what I'm doing, what I'm called to do, to bless you so you can continue to do on what you're called to do.
So I'm just gonna say, amazing story. So, and I applaud you for being courageous. I know it's amazing how many times when I was working with youth ministry a lot, how many young girls were abused and their parents didn't believe them even. I'm happy that your mom at least did, but yeah, it's amazing when people don't believe, oh, that person couldn't do that, or that person wouldn't, or they won't stand up for the truth.
Yeah.
When we know the truth. And it's like amazing how many people do know the truth and they just turn their backs. And it's like, yeah, we need to stop that. So it's like, yeah, it's one thing, and yet I like my sister, I know people that are therapists, we'll just put it that way. And they've dealt with clients that said they accused a guy of raping them just because they had a dream about it.
Oh,
and destroyed his life. It's just amazing the difference. It's like, no, we need to just tell the truth. So I am so happy that you got through all of that. And what a struggle and battle. I'm sure it was. Sure, it was not easy for your loved ones watching you go through that. Besides, and not you, because it's that was it. It was probably the fact that you felt like nobody else believed you but your mom.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. My mom always believed me, but I didn't tell anybody. And I kind of kept that part until I became a Christian and really started going, okay, this is like festering inside my soul. We've got to get it out. I didn't really even, I just let it kind of destroy me from the inside out. And so, but I found that, when I finally did, people did believe me. I do believe that, there's a place where, that the kind of the opposite extreme happens, where people are, they regret something and then they call it abuse. And that's not, I try to find that nice balance, because, we want to make sure that we're continuing to believe survivors. But when we have people that are taking advantage of what it means to be a survivor, that's damaging as well on that side as well.
What would you tell like we said, we have some youth watching and that are in our group. Hindsight is 2020. If you were again in that 13-year-old body and self, with the lessons learned, what is your recommendation or advice to people that are young, or women or men, even? Because I had a client and he was abused, and that was festering him, and on until we had a session is when he realized a lot of things. So it happens to both men and women. What would you tell them? I'm sure there's a lot of shame probably that goes into it. What is your advice for people to summon that courage to tell?
Yeah. And I think that one of the biggest things I would say to someone is really understand what is considered normal. It is absolutely normal for a little girl who sees a, attractive older man to be, especially if he's an authority, like, oh, I have a crush on my teacher, or I have a crush on my, like, that's normal. What's not normal is for that person to go in and take advantage of your naivety. And then also realizing what you're really seeking. So one of the ways that my abuser was able to exploit me was because I had, you're 13, you have a kind of a, I don't want to say troubled relationship with your father, but it's like an awkward time. You're starting to grow boobs and you're starting to be sassy, and he doesn't, the dad figure especially is not like, not like the emotional one of the pair. And sometimes you can find, like, I'm looking for the affection of a male, and then that's completely normal. And you deserve to have affection, but you deserve to have affection that isn't sexualized. You deserve to have normal, non-sexual affection from the people that are in authority over you, that are protecting you and loving you. And when you realize that, oh, that's what I'm really seeking, instead of, and I'm trying to fill this hole with something that's a counterfeit of that, you're going to be finding yourself, even if you don't experience trauma like that, you're going to be finding yourself continuing to just like, scrounge for that thing when you're really looking for something that is like truly what you want. And so really just to dive down and say, what am I really wanting here? Which takes a really mature person to kind of look back in and be like, okay, yes, this, sexual, attraction, or, this affection that I'm getting that's sexual in nature or more sexually charged in nature feels good. But at the end of the day, it's like, it might go down like honey, but it's bitter as gall, and it'll ruin you at the end. And then also, there's power in confession, just telling someone, hey, this is going on, this is not right. And it's, I think that also takes a really, really brave person to stand up for themselves. And yeah, and you're right, it is happening to the male population as well. And I'm involved with a group called Not on Our Watch Texas, which we talk about how the cell phone is now the new big white van. Used to in the 80s, we'd be scared of the white van that came and, snatched up children. But now we're letting our children go to bed with their cell phones. They're getting on Instagram. They don't realize that these girls, the boys, the girls get on and they have this photo that's, AI generated or something, and they think they're talking to a girl. Pressure, like, sorry, did I interrupt?
Oh, that's fine. So, well, you're just reminding me because, like you said, human trafficking is big, and people don't realize that. Everybody always assumes that it takes, like days for somebody to be kidnapped, but actually, a kidnapping can occur within 7 seconds.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that. My cousin was actually kidnapped when she was 21.
Wow.
Or no, actually, she was only 18. But a lot of times people do, young women, they don't realize that they're kidnappings occur more like at 12 and 18 when these women or young girls start thinking they're brave and more mature and they don't have to look out for themselves. Like they're big enough, they can guard off but they're really not. And you should always should be two of you, like if you're walking or, take those precautions, always know your surroundings. But my cousin, she went to a job interview and the guy told her, oh, the building, something happened to the building. We can't meet there in the office, so I'll just interview in my van.
Cool.
And her boyfriend didn't go with her at the time. And sadly, she followed him and went to the van and was actually murdered. She was killed by the I-5 strangler at that time. But I worked with the police department on called the Block Home for safety for children. And also when I was modeling, it was amazing how many times people would call you, hey, we want you to model for us. We want to meet you. And it's like, you don't just go meet strangers. You make sure you always take people with you. You can say no, work with your agency, make sure it's safe. No matter what job interview or whatever you're doing, and it can happen at any age. And I think that's what people think. They always don't think kidnappings are just little kids, and they're not. Or we're living in a small town, so nothing's going to happen. And sometimes those small towns can be the worst. So use caution. So,
well, and I think you bring up a good point is like with modeling or something like that, or a job interview or whatever, you have to be careful to temper your desire, your passion to do good and right or wonderful things or exciting things with, what that gut intuition that says, hey, this doesn't seem completely right. And I think sometimes we let our passions blind us to what's safe and right. And when you're younger, I think, or even when you're old, I think you're right. Like we go, oh, it's not going to happen to us. And it's like, that makes you vulnerable, that type of thinking. I always say like one of the reasons why my marriage has lasted so long is because I know I'm capable of awful things. Like I'm no different than anybody else. I could cheat on my husband. I could do, awful things. But knowing that I'm capable, or that something, in this case, knowing that somebody is capable of kidnapping you, does give you a sense of safety. And relying on those people that, especially when you're young, you kind of shun, like, I don't need my parents, or I don't need to do that, like you said. and using caution and wisdom and being like, you know what, these people, like, they love me the most. They're not just trying. I mean, it kind of sometimes seems like your mom is just being a jerk, but she wants you to succeed and be better than she was.
Very true. What's funny is I would get these people comment, they're like, you're just so paranoid. Why are you so picky? It's like, no, I want to know exactly where my kids are at all times. If it means I need to read their phones, their messages occasionally, then I'm going to do it. I need to check, I need to know where they're at. It's a safety precaution for them. It's like, I don't when the kids were little, I didn't let them just run around at a fairgrounds or things. It's like it's teaching them safety for themselves and for others because you don't want to have any regrets.
Yeah.
And like I said, so many times people think don't know how many times, and you guys have probably been there, where you're in a store and there's a lost child. It comes up to, I've found, I don't know how many lost child, and the parents don't even realize they're gone. And of course you take them to security and stuff. And I always stay there with the child until the parent arrives to make sure, because there's been
You
known
never know.
the security was not legit themselves. So
Elaine,
Yeah.
I have a question also. I have a question about the affection. Like at that age, you felt like hungry, some kind of interested in some affection. My question is if it was also attention, and if you think there's a difference between affection and attention.
I think, I think I'm using them synonymously, is that attention and affection are similar, but I think that there is, when you are at that, like, kind of those juncture ages, like 12, which is one of the, kind of the ages where sexual abuse tends to be a lot higher, is that it is, I mean, because I'm a Christian, I believe there is an enemy out there. And he is walking around like a roaring lion, seeking who he could devour. And it's like he knows when you're the most arrogant, you're the most vulnerable. And we could all raise our hands and know that a 12-year-old girl, boy, that's when they start getting really like, I know everything and my mom knows nothing. And they're the most vulnerable. And at that same time, though, they're pushing you away. They're also wanting you to kind of pull them back and say, I'm here, I've got you, kind of like a, bird that's flying out of the nest. Like, you kind of are there and you kind of are not. And it's a weird time for both the parent and the child. And I think it's the parent's job, not the child's job, to know about that time, because and to even inform, hey, just to let you know, this is what you're doing, and being emotionally intelligent enough to let them know, so that they go, okay, how I'm feeling is normal. Me pushing being bratty and pushing my parents away is normal. But at the same time, it is my job, now that I know that they are here for me, and then I can turn to them, and just continuing to keep the lines of communication open. And like I was saying before, kids at this point, they need more information, because, like, in the sense with Not on Our Watch, there is Nigerian crime rings that are literally making thousands of dollars, all the time, on these kids that they're exploiting online. And if kids don't know that that's out there, they're going to think that the person that they're sexting is just, another 13-year-old, 15-year-old person. And also, one of the things that we teach with Not on Our Watch is that the dynamic of sexual exploration and affection is changing because of the online community, and that we as parents have to evolve. Yes, of course. I don't, like, we don't just go out there like sending a nude pics to people. When we were little, that was, and even as we grew and I got a cell phone, like, I think I was 21, like, that would have been unheard of for someone to send nude pictures. But that is really part of this sexual exploration of our children. And whether or not you approve of that behavior is as you as a parent, but that is how a lot of the teens are experimenting. I remember I got my first kiss. We were in like a little concrete tunnel in kindergarten, and I was sitting there and I like got my first kiss while all the kindergartners were saying kiss, kiss, kiss. And that was my, sexual exploration. I mean, it's a mild one considering I was like in kindergarten. But, they were a lot of more in-person exploration, where now it's all, the communication and the community is online. And so letting them know that, like, when you're, a 16-year-old boy, like, it's normal for you to have a healthy sex drive and want to or be enticed to engage in these behaviors. But if you find yourself too deep in this, and all of a sudden the person on the other side is saying, give me $1,000 or I'm going to exploit you, I am here and I might be upset and angry, but I would rather have you alive and me be a tiny bit mad at you or upset or frustrated than you be, go out and like 3 or 4 teenage boys last year, killed themselves with guns because they were being exploited and they were being told, if you don't give us this $1,000, we're gonna, you're better off dead anyhow. And the stories that are coming out, they're actually extraditing a Nigerian crime ring to the United States this year to prosecute them because it's such a big deal. And so just letting all the kids know what is going on in the society. And then also, like doing things as a parent that is, protective. Like we do not let our children spend the night out. There are like 1 or 2 girls that we allow to spend the night here. But even then, it's like, you don't know when you're inviting somebody into your house that spends the night. Will they accuse the brother or the father? Like that opens you up. And it's not worth, you can pick your kid up at midnight or 1 a.m. and they can have just as much fun. And if you want to, you can take them back in the morning at 8 a.m. so they can have breakfast together. There's nothing they're missing out on
Right.
between the hours of midnight and 7 a.m.
There's trouble that you are helping them avoid, but
Yeah.
there's nothing they should be missing out on because it's time to rest and sleep. I also have a policy at home that I learned the hard way that I don't allow devices upstairs in their bedrooms at all. Wherever you have bedrooms, we don't allow devices in their bedrooms, and they need to charge them in our room, my
Yeah.
husband and my room. I
Well,
mean,
I was going to say, one of the things we always did is we kept our girls busy.
Yeah.
You get them involved in different sports or going on hikes. You do family things together. You have to do those things together. And there were certain nights that we take our girls to youth group. And I used to have like 16 kids at once, sometimes at my house, but boys would sleep upstairs, girls downstairs. We'd invite the parents if they wanted to come. They were welcome to come. But yeah, you need to know exactly where they are and keep them busy, right?
Yeah. I think, and also parental involvement is a huge thing. And I think one of the things that in our society, we were never meant to be as busy as we are today. And so it's so natural for us, and we shouldn't feel the guilt for it. It's natural for us to just want to scroll our phone because we're just overwhelmed with stuff. So when we get home, we want to disconnect. We don't want to engage with our children and ask them how their day is because we're tired. We need someone to ask how our day was. And, just knowing that, yes, that's normal for you to feel like that, but that also could mean that you need to say no to certain things. And scrolling your phone, as much as it feels like connection, it's not connection. And saying yes, sometimes just scrolling your phone is totally fine. I'm not trying to like down anybody for scrolling on Instagram, but not putting so much on keeping them busy, but not so busy that it's causing the negative effect of the busyness. But yeah, I agree 100%. Keep them busy because if they're too bored, then the opposite, then of course they're going to scroll their phone and then they just get into trouble and they start the web is called the web for a reason. It'll take you to the recesses of the darkness.
Well, basically, they learn your balance and as parents, we need to be the example of that, I failed at it, of course, at times. But showing that it's like, okay, it's all right to use your phone at this time for certain scrolling. Oh, because I use it for my business. So, but at the same time, it's like, okay, you have to take time to eat as a family, as a meal, take time for church, take time to go on hikes, take time to be creative. And, there's so many things because kids, they do go to school and take time to ask those questions, whether it's going and walking home with them or driving and picking them up so you can have that discussion time. It's those little things that you just have to figure out, okay, where can I throw this in and where can I throw that in? Because it is a different time. So, but I want to hear about how you got into your furniture, which is awesome. So that's a creative outlet.
Yeah. So that happened right before the pandemic. Like I said, we had gone on the only vacation we'd gone on except for camping. And because that was what we could afford, was camping, and the kids loved it, of course. And we went on a vacation to Hawaii, which was absolutely gorgeous, and didn't know the pandemic was coming up, and came back. And I just was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we put all this on the credit card. And we're not, we're a big family. We don't make a ton of money. And even if we do make a lot of money, like we have made money from CurbVulture, it's not an, it's you, it's less than $10,000 per person, at the end of the day and for the entire year. And it's like, okay, well, and so when we came back, I was just like, I cannot believe that I did this. And I felt a lot of guilt and, shame for like being so stupid and putting my family in debt. And so I just laid on my bed for a little bit and just cried and just was praying, like, please bring me something. And that's when I found something on the side of the road, and I was like, well, I don't need this, and it just needs a little bit of wood glue and some staples, and I can fix it up and sell it. Because I think it was like an IKEA dresser, and those dressers were like $140 online, and I could fix it up and sell it for half the price. And so it was kind of a win. It's a win, and that was minutes before the trash truck. And so it's a win for the environment and keeping our beautiful nature clean of all the things, because 12 million tons of furniture goes into the landfill every single year, especially increasing as fast furniture and fast fashion increases. And then it gives me money in my pocket, and also gives somebody the thing that they want, that at a better price than IKEA sells it for. And, I did that over and over until, we paid off the debt. And then I turned to vintage, because I found that was, really hot and trendy in the market. And of course, I always loved vintage and had a heart for that, but started kind of picking up stuff and restoring stuff, because I found some vintage stuff on the side of the road. And so that was what I could sell for even a higher price than, like I'd find a dog crate or something on the side of the road and sell that. Way more fun to stage and sell and make beautiful photos of than a dog crate. And found a beautiful vintage community around that, of resellers who, paint furniture, who restore furniture, and continue to learn like the value of vintage furniture and the beauty of a well-made piece that's got dovetail drawers, or, the solid wood, and not, just a veneer. I mean, most vintage furniture is actually a veneer on top of solid wood, and they do that. So if you ever are shopping and you say solid wood, like, it's a hard thing to explain, because people are like, oh, it should be like, it's like Amish furniture. Like, yes, Amish furniture is made out of one piece of wood, and it's solid the whole way through. But most furniture is made with a solid wood that doesn't warp, and then they cover it with a higher quality wood, so that it has like, mahogany or, tiger wood. But you can't build furniture with tiger wood, because it'll warp over time. And so they build usually with like a really solid, oak or something inside that it doesn't warp. And then they cover it with a beautiful high-end quality piece of wood. And so, just learning things like that, realizing that this is, especially in contrast to the current fast fashion, in fast furniture, where everything is just like getting more and more like just little, there's by staples and particle board, and the world that your family you can't be a family and be wild, and especially in my family, around furniture that is like going to fall apart at any moment. And that's also not a fun life to live when you're at home, is being like, oh my gosh, watch out for the, piece of furniture, the IKEA furniture that's held on by pegs and glue, and it's going to break. No, no shade to IKEA. I like IKEA just fine. But, just seeing the value of vintage furniture and then the demand behind it. And it got to the point where, I couldn't keep up with the demand, and I kept running out of supply. And that's still one of my biggest problems, is keeping supply in store. And, but I have I call it my studio. It's my garage. It was all in my house for a long time, and I would yell at the kids to be careful around the furniture. That wasn't fun. So I outfitted my garage to kind of, make like a makeshift studio, photography studio, and house all my furniture out there. And so a lot of days I sit in the 120-degree Texas heat, and, sand furniture, and, mosquitoes are everywhere, and, that's the life. But, if you're from Texas or anywhere that's hot, I think there's just this wonderful, beautiful place that when you kind of go in, and I'm sure you could feel like this even when you go camping, like you just get in camp mode, or you just get in nature mode. Like yes, I'm going to be sweating. This is just what it is. And then more in the, if you accept that kind of like sweaty, like kind of gross, like not indoor atmosphere, it's a beautiful thing. And, you really feel good to work, with your hands outside. So I really enjoyed that aspect of the vintage furniture.
What I
Well, I
like
understand.
is, go
Go
ahead,
ahead, Lori. Oh, I was just gonna say, I understand the studio part. As Lori knows, we're working on a studio, but there was times it was in my house. I remember creating trees that were 14 feet long on my railings upstairs, setting them on there, and it's like, okay, everybody, be careful so nobody knocks these off. And I was creating a 14-foot panel, but it was in 5 pieces, and part of it was in my bedroom, part of it was in the hallways, it was in all these different sections, and it was like a puzzle. So when it went together, and so I take photographs, and it was like trying to make sure it was going to all mesh up perfect, which it did, but I praise God for that, because if it wasn't for him, it probably wouldn't have. So, but yeah, your studio is wherever you work,
yeah.
right? And sometimes my studio is outside. I've painted and worked on my back decks before, because that was the place, especially in the summertime. That's
Yeah.
where you'll find me. So go ahead,
Yes.
Lori.
Yeah, I was just going to comment how wonderful, and time goes by so fast when we were having fun. And Elaine, you have been such a delight to have, because you have turned your mess into your message, right? Your mess when you were 13-year-old. And then your mess of finding furniture or having gone on that vacation, right? Into a meaningful mission. So I really appreciate you. I really, really appreciate your message. And of course, our main purpose of this broadcast and these conversations is to inspire our audience in our group, Facebook group, and anywhere else if you watch us on YouTube. And I just want to say that you're very inspiring. And also, I have questions about how you started on. Tammy asked you about the furniture, but also on beauty pageants. And if that is something you can tell us and share as well, that would be amazing, because I love the fact that it sounds like you started that after you were a mom of 7. So when we're tired and we think we're done in life with life's contributions, it's like,
Yeah.
hey, I contributed with community and society with all these children. Still, our individual self, right? We still need to do things that are, like you said, our calling. And if you felt called and inspired by the other Miss Universe with a crown and a sash, to say, hey, people are going to start paying attention now. I just want to know how that was for you. What was that decision making, and what difference have you been able to make? Which it sounds like it's a lot already in your community. Um,
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. When we are done having children, I had this moment. I was like, well, so now do I just wait to have grandkids? Is that like my next big milestone? And I was like, that's a long time. Like, I don't want to just wait around. And so doing pageants has enabled me to kind of reclaim who I am as a person. Because before, I mean, not just a mom, but I'm a mom wearing yoga pants and not wearing makeup and just going about my life. And, when I had my seventh baby, the day after my seventh baby, I called Weight Watchers and signed up, because I was like, I don't want to be, that the person that like is carrying all this weight. And, right when you give birth, it's like probably the easiest to lose all that weight because your metabolism is so high. And so I wanted to take advantage of that. And so that probably was part of, me just getting back into who I was before babies, before marriage, and embracing that part. And then, having teenagers and, ignited that passion in me for fashion and beauty, because they're like, Mom, you're not going to walk out of the house like that, right? And I'm like, actually I was, but I guess I should try to change. And so, when going into pageantry has allowed me to kind of reclaim that part of me that had passions outside of motherhood. And because at the end of the day, when the kids leave the house, it's just you and your husband left. And you can't neglect your marriage, and you can't neglect yourself, because when you're left without your children to distract you, then those things are going to implode. And that's not a beautiful thing. So you want to make sure you're taking measures to protect who you are and what your marriage is as well. And so pageantry, going into pageantry is, as simple as finding a pageant system that is near you. If you are interested in pageantry, please hit me up on Instagram at Elaine Mingus Official. I will 100% hook you up with a pageant in your state, and you pay the entry fee, you get to choose your title, and then you get to compete. And the wonderful thing about pageantry is that you're encouraged to not pay for it yourself. So they want you to not pay the entry fee, not have to pay all the different like ad page fees they want you to have a hair sponsor. They want you to have community members that are, you go to your dentist office and say, hey, you probably have a budget to give back to the community. Can you take that budget and put it towards my pageantry? Because I'm going to stand for this, this, and this. And so it could be whatever you're passionate about. You're passionate. Some people it's animals, some people it's mental health. And so whatever you're passionate about becomes what you are able to speak on. And through pageantry, I have been able to talk about my own childhood sexual abuse and my addiction and my recovery process, my faith, and also how to properly harness the power of social media in order to get those messages across in a more powerful, effective way. Because as somebody who has been in marketing for 25 years, that is something that I am able to teach people. And so, like this weekend, I went and ran at the Hope Alliance 5K and I was the keynote speaker there, able to share my story of overcoming, because they help victims of domestic violence and sexual violence. And so just, again, sharing my story that just because you've experienced domestic violence or sexual violence doesn't mean your life is over. And that's one thing I also would love to make sure that parents know, is that if you are in a moment where you just found out that your child has experienced sexual violence, sexual abuse, they can be okay. They can be redeemed. Your job is to get them the help that they need, but don't get so worried about them like they're never going to recover. It's the worst thing that can happen. It is the awful thing to happen. But as long as they're breathing, it is not the worst thing that can happen. They can recover. And when they recover, they can then inspire the next generation that will experience the atrocities, because as long as we have sin, as long as we have evil in this world, that will still continue to happen. And every generation is going to need their voice, and your child might be that voice. So keep the faith, keep the hope. Don't give up. Don't get desperate and despaired that your child has experienced something awful. It is not the end.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's so good to know that you've been able to use this opportunity for great messages, for the community to be more involved, to contribute and give back. So thank you so much for being here, Elaine. I am sure our audience will just benefit from these nuggets of wisdom and your experiences. And what's next for you? Are you going to crown the next one coming up, or what are you going to do?
Yeah, so I'm going to be competing for the Mrs. Texas Crown on November 3rd. So in about 19 days, I'll be there doing that. And so, if and when I'm crowned, and even if I'm not, I'm just going to continue doing what I'm doing as Mrs. Austin and go out and speak on, to the people about whatever it is that they need me to speak on, that I'm qualified to speak on, and continue to get back to the community, whether it be, doing something hands-on like filling diaper bags for the Austin Diaper Bank, or going, and helping women dress for success in the Dress for Success Austin group that allows women that have experienced either domestic violence or poverty to make sure that they're able to show up for the job well. And so just doing all the things that need to be done, and places that always need volunteers, because if not you, then who?
Yay!
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
and you'll definitely have to share your story if you make for Miss Texas. Let us know. So we
Yeah,
can watch.
absolutely.
And also, you were the group that you were talking about, that you're about for the abuse for
Oh,
victims.
not on our Watch Texas. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not on. You might want to post that on
Yeah,
here,
absolutely.
just so if anybody needs it or would like to reach out, just so parents are aware.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
that.
And so we appreciate having you on. And like Lori said, if this could go on and on, so we'll probably just have to have Elaine back, is what it sounds like.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on and letting me talk so much.
Absolutely. We love it. You are definitely a great storyteller. And there's a lot to learn from you, Elaine. So we wish you all the best. And you, as in our audience, I like Tammy always say, if you like this, please share, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're watching this on YouTube, and in our group, make comments, ask Elaine some questions. She's already a member of our group, so just tag her and she'll reply to you. There's a lot to learn here from her for her mother experiences, her teenage experiences as a teenager herself, and as a fulfilled mom that just decided to do something else and something more with her life. So in a beautiful way. So thank you so much, Elaine, for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
So, well, thanks again, Elaine. Thanks everyone for being here. Like Lori said, make sure you like and share. And we love hearing those stories and seeing those comments. So hope you guys have a wonderful week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.